All right, so we looked at some models and what they mean for the game. Now let's look at levels. So let's go back to the main area in OpenBORStats. Now we'll open up the levels area. You should see something very familiar here though. Yes, these are indeed the game modes that were created in levels.txt. Let's go ahead and open up DBH course test. You should see the levels that were a part of that game mode. And let's open up example1.txt to look at how this stage is constructed. This will open up a level design editor screen. Before we talk about the level, let's look at the interface of this editor screen. Here are the different areas of this screen. So we have the toolbar, editing area, help area, and design view. The toolbar has all the buttons that influence what's shown in the design area. The design area is this bottom area. This area shows a visual representation of the edits done in the editing area. Alright, so with the toolbar, we'll start with the button on the left. This button of a floppy disk is your save button. This button actually commits your save to the actual level file. But you are able to see how your changes look in the design area before actually saving your changes to the physical file. Next is the green circle button, which you should recognize from the main screen. This is to reload the design area with what's been coded in the editing area. Reloading the design doesn't actually mean save though. So this is how you can see how your changes look before you actually save your changes. Next is the search button. This is basically a find feature that allows you to search out text in your code. Alright, so next are a group of checkboxes that change what's shown in the design area and help area. Background controls the loaded background of the stage. Panel controls the panels or the backgrounds that represent the ground. Entities are the models. Front controls the foreground. Hole/walls control the holes and walls. Focus glossary is related to the help area. More on that in a second though. P-trans is related to the model sprites. Each sprite has a transparency color that shows up as invisible when loaded in the game. Typically it's pink, but can be any color you set it to. More on this in detail in the intermediate class though. So in order to reflect the changes on the toolbar in the design area, just hit the reload button. The editing area is where you would edit the code for the level. The help area is a helpful hint area on what certain commands are related to level design. So if you ever want to know more about certain commands, you can use this help area. Let me show you what I mean. So if you click on the line of code that contains a command, you can see documentation on that command in the help area. Right now I clicked on line number 1, which contains a music command. If you look on the right, you'll see what the command is and what parameters are available to it. On another note, you can also resize the size of editing, help, and design areas. Okay, let's look at the construction of the stage. Then we'll look at how the code influences design. Alright, so I'm going to use the toolbar to explain the construction. So we have different parts to the default construction of a stage. We have the background layer, panel, models and entities, and the foreground layer. Right now you see a fence with a pink background. Remember when I mentioned how sprites have a transparency color? That's what this pink is. So this will always appear above everything else as it's a foreground layer, meaning being in the front. I'm going to hide this to see what's behind this. Now we can also check the P-trans option, but it doesn't always hide the whole front layer. So it's best to just uncheck the front checkbox. All right, gonna go ahead and refresh here. So now the front layer is hidden. Now we see models and entities, and they all show up on top of the panels. Now when I hide the models, we see the panels or the floor. Now watch what happens when I only show the background layer. So as you can see, this is a background layer that repeats. You can't even see this background because the panel includes the wall, doors, etc. The difference between a background layer and a panel is that the background layer is like the background in the distance that will scroll at a different speed than the panel. So imagine you walking downtown and looking at the buildings beside you. They're going to move at the same speed as you. So when it comes to side scrolling, we want to make sure to emulate that. So that's why the panels have those buildings included. So whatever you want to scroll at the same speed as the player needs to be included in the panel sprites. All right, so I'm going to bring everything back except for the foreground right now, and we'll go to the code. Let's start at lines 1 and 2. Both of these are commands that play music for the level. The music command is accompanied by the path to the music file, as you can see. Boss music is the command that tells the level what to play once the boss is loaded into the level. Again, clicking on each line of code shows helpful text in the help area. So please take the time to go through a level file and click on each line to get an idea of what these commands do. Okay, jumping down to line 5, we see the background command, which loads the background layer that scrolls at a different speed. We looked at how this background layer looked before, and we can see where this file is based by its path. Jumping down to lines 8 through 11, this is the foreground layer command. As you can see, there are 4 commands. Each command stacks a sprite on the foreground loop. So if there was just one command, then that one foreground sprite would repeat over and over throughout the stage. But if you wanted more variety in the foreground, you can use multiple commands to where that group of foreground sprites would be repeated. Now let's look at lines 16 through 23. Now these are important now because we need the ground and many objects of the same visual level to move at the same speed as the player. Panels typically include this in their sprites. The panel command has 3 parameters. Got the path, the neon overlay, and the screen overlay. Path is, like you think, is the path to the sprite. Neon is an extra layer on the sprite, and screen is like a foreground layer for that particular sprite. So you can essentially have a layered sprite as a panel. Neon and screen are both optional. So if you don't have anything to layer for both of those, then just use none as the value for those parameters. As you can see, there are 8 panels being loaded, and feel free to look at the path for each one of those panels. So you got panel 1, panel 2, panel 3, panel 4, panel 5, panel 6, panel 7, and panel 8. All right. So these are all panel tiles that have been declared and loaded up. Let's look at lines 25 through 31. You can see the letters A through H in the comments. Each letter represents each listed panel. So the first panel in line 16 is represented by A, second panel in line 17 is represented by B, and etc. These letters will be used to draw out the panel background, where you can choose whatever order you want. You can paint out your own stage. You can do this with the order command. All right, speaking of that, let's drop down to lines 39 and 40. Here you see the order command with a sequence of letters that are between A and H. So you can use this to create your own order of panels. So let's say you changed line 30 to look like this. Once you pasted this in, let's hit reload. Now you should be able to see the sliding doors start at the very beginning. Okay, so please spend some time playing around with the order to get a better feel. Each order addition determines how long the stage will be. As we look at the design and scroll to the right, you can see where the enemies sit and where the panels stop. Keep this in mind as we'll go over enemy, item, and boss placement in the next lesson. See you soon. We hope you're learning what you can from these free tutorials. Again, if you feel you need more in-depth or extensive services or extra help with learning and getting the most out of this and don't want to wait on the videos, please feel free to join our DBH community for only $5. That doesn't mean you can't ask questions on here though. So if you have any comments or questions, please feel free to post those. Like and share this playlist for those who may need it. At the end of the day, we just want to help people build their engineering and coding skills to be efficient wherever they want to go. I'm Kevin, appreciate you watching and be brilliant. Peace.